Welcome back to this special edition of Inside Story on the changing face of this historic city behind us, Jerusalem. Well, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is rarely out of the headlines, but people hear less about the divisions affecting the day-to-day lives of the city's residents. Human rights groups concur that although Palestinians form a third of its population, they receive only around a tenth of Jerusalem's municipal budget. That is, the city invests more than 4 times as much on a Jewish resident than a Palestinian one. Well, leading Israeli human rights organization B'Tselem claims that currently 30% of Jerusalem's Jews live below the poverty line. That compares with 67% of Palestinians. It's estimated that 9/10 of the city's roads and sewage pipes are in mainly Jewish West Jerusalem. West Jerusalem has around 1,000 public parks, East Jerusalem less than 50. And East Jerusalem gets just a fifth of the money spent on health. Well, once again, we welcome our guests to discuss the issues further. Avi Melamed, he's a former advisor to Jerusalem mayors, including the current Prime Minister Ehud Olmert. Thanks for being with us. Jad Ishaq, Director General of the Jerusalem Institute for Applied Research, and David Shearer, Head of the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. We were talking earlier, just before the break there, Jad, about some of the facts and figures. Avi would put it that the Jerusalem municipality does issue permits, does spend on Palestinian residents. Why aren't they happy?
I'll take only his figures. When he said that the population grew from 65,000 to 250,000, that's about 4 times. So they need 400% more dwellings, while the dwellings that were added were, according to his figure, 120. So this means that there is a deficit of 300%. And I will stop at this.
All right, well, before we get too deep into arguing over numbers, and there's plenty to argue about, perhaps I'll go over to David for a second. And we ask the question now of looking forward and the construction of this wall. How will that further impact not only the city of Jerusalem, but some of the other population centers that have historically been connected to Jerusalem?
Well, effectively, if you're living outside of that wall in the West Bank, you need to apply for a permit to come into Jerusalem. And what we're seeing and what we're being able to monitor is a lessening number of permits being delivered. So, for example, if a businessman wants to come into Jerusalem, which is a huge market for that businessman out in the West Bank, many of them now are not able to come in. People who want to come into the religious centres, again, they're being restricted from coming in. So Jerusalem, which was once for Palestinians, East Jerusalem, which was once the centre of their lives economically and socially, culturally, religiously, slowly that's not the case anymore. And what we're seeing is actually people having to go out to secondary areas. And just one example are the hospitals, the 6 specialist hospitals that are inside Jerusalem. People need to get permits to come to a hospital. And the hospitals themselves are reporting that 50% less people are coming to hospital now because they simply can't get a permit.
All right, Jad, what is the solution then? And is the solution, if, as we're hearing, East Jerusalem's being cut off, you're being surrounded, you're not getting the kind of government spending that you hope for, is the solution to set up your own municipal authority, as some have suggested?
Well, I think Jerusalem should be an open city. It should be accessible to everybody, and people will have the right to access and worship in this holy city. Unfortunately, this is not the case.
But failing that,
well,
some are talking about establishing your own. Is that a solution, establishing your own municipal authority?
Along the 1967 borders, it would be possible to manage such a solution. But what's important is that Jerusalem is the heart of the Palestinian problem, not only for religious issues, but also for educational, social, economic issues. If you want to buy something nice, you go to Jerusalem. There was never a direct link between Bethlehem and Ramallah. Everything went through Jerusalem.
All right.
This cannot be stopped. The right of worship is an essential human right.
Let's stop it there. I want to bring Avi into this. How would the Israeli-controlled municipality react to perhaps Palestinians setting up their own municipal authority?
Well, first of all, I must say something which is very important. The Palestinians in Jerusalem are entitled to participate in the elections to the municipality, including the position of the mayorship. So far, the Palestinians have chosen not to practice that right. In the absence of political and participation of the Palestinians in the city's council, Obviously, the Palestinians cannot accept that other political parties who stand for seculars or religious people in the city would stand for the Palestinians' interests themselves. I had a lot of meetings with all kinds of Palestinian leaders in Jerusalem, including the late Faisal Husseini, and I was trying to encourage them to participate and to practice the right that they have. Unfortunately, they have chosen not to practice that right, and of course, one of the outcomes is the fact that they are being discriminated against in terms of allocating the budget. By the way, I do agree with the fact that Palestinians in Jerusalem are being discriminated against, not necessarily in terms of housing, but in terms of community services and infrastructures, which go back to the same thing I was saying before about the fact that the Palestinians have decided not to participate in the elections to the municipality.
Why weren't Palestinians sharing the municipality?
I cannot expect that I cannot accept that the Palestinians are being asked to legitimize Israeli unilateral annexation of Jerusalem. This is in violation of the international law. This is a violation of the ICJ ruling, which said that very clearly, that all Israeli actions in Jerusalem, East Jerusalem, is null and void and illegal. I cannot expect any Palestinian to go ahead with what Eminem is trying.
I wonder, because we are running out of time, I want to get David into the discussion again. The UN has had proposals for many years about what to do with Jerusalem, from partition to a united city to an international city. Has time proved that that is really no longer feasible?
Well, I think the communities themselves right at the moment are further apart now than they've ever have been, and to be able to come to any sort of solution, that bridge has to be met.
Right, I'm sorry, but we're going to have to leave it there. Very brief final word there from David Shearer of the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. Thanks for that. Jad Ishaq, Director General of the Jerusalem Institute for Applied Research, and Mr. Avi Melamed, former advisor to Jerusalem's mayor, including the current Prime Minister Ehud Olmert.
Thank you very much.
Well, unfortunately, that is all the time we have for this special edition of Inside Story from the heart of one of the world's biggest and most far-reaching conflicts. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.